Hey, 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 Facebook. It's Monday Madness. It's Victoria Terrazzano here. I'm live in Melbourne and it's a Monday night. It's a little bit later than normal. We've recently had our clocks change and the clocks in Queensland haven't changed yet. So my training ran a little bit later than normal. So I'm on a little bit later than normal. Now, last week I talked about the fact that this week I was going to discuss helping anxious children sleep. And the reason for that is because obviously it's part of my parenting experience and it's always nice to share. And sometimes you come across that little tip that you're just like, I didn't really quite fully understand that before, or I was obviously doing that wrong. And some of it is like really obvious information that everybody knows, but it was just about how we had to understand it to apply it to our family and how maybe sometimes small tweaks on really general information make a big difference. Hi, Jazzy. Hi, Melissa. How are you? Monday. Yay, yay, yay. So, right, in relation to the sleep, there are a couple of really sort of generic, everyday guidelines that people say, and sometimes it's easy to follow them and sometimes it's not so easy. It's a bit like healthy food, isn't it, really? Hiya. You sort of, you want to do it, but it's not always easy. So the most obvious and really basic fundamental guideline that people always say when they're talking about helping children sleep is that you need to set up a good bedtime routine. And I have to be honest, I can't argue with that advice. When he was younger and it was really easy to control what time his day was and when we had dinner and all that, bedtime did seem to go much better. He did sleep generally better. He still struggled with that later half of the night because you see, some of it comes down to understanding how kids sleep and what happens when they sleep. But the first portion of their sleep is when they do a lot of their really deep sleep. And then the second half of the night is a lot of sort of light sleep and dreaming sort of stuff. And they do tend to go into sort of wakefulness and then back again. And they need to have that skill to resettle themselves to be able to go back. Otherwise, they end up awake. Mine, he's awake a lot. Okay, but the getting him to sleep used to be much easier, and that was when we had a really good solid bedtime routine. Now, the problem with bedtime routines, particularly when they get to school age, is that after school stuff happens at different days of the week. It happens at odd times. It throws dinner time. It throws bedtime. It throws pretty much everything. So as much as you can, if you can stick to the routine, even if the time is slightly out, it should still benefit them. And it should still make a difference. And it does make a difference in our house, but we do find we have to be really rigid with the actual routine. Now, we've managed to work out a routine that works best for us. It's not necessarily going to work best for everybody, but honestly, the reasons that we do, the things that we do, probably will still apply to anyone out there who does have anxious children or really literal children. If you've got really literal children, hang on for the tip at the end, because I kid you not, it's worth it. And it really changed our lives, okay? But yeah, the bedtime routine, if you are struggling with school, just remember that it's not necessarily about the bedtime so much as it is the hour and a bit before bed when you're sort of going through that process to get them to bed. That's really important. And some of the things they talk about when you talk about how the body functions and what it does. So during daylight hours, for example, it's really key to get the kids outside, get them lots of natural light, get them into the fresh air, and get them sort of seeing that natural light, because the natural light actually suppresses melatonin, so it helps them feel alert and awake. But it also means when they've had that alert and awakeness during the day, as the light goes down, it's easier for them to get into ready for sleep because the melatonin levels raise. Now, the only thing I would say there is if you have an ASD child, the chances are they're going to have lower melatonin levels anyway. So their melatonin levels may not raise enough if you don't really change the lighting towards the end of the day. So what we tend to do is we tend to turn our lights right down, just use lamps, sort of side lights, so just to sort of encourage that sort of evening feel. It's much, much harder as we come into the summer here because it is so, so bright. But yeah, there is that element of trying to get as much brightness during the day and just being aware that melatonin levels really feed into how well they produce serotonin and therefore how easy it is for them to sleep. One of the things that we found, I talked about this a little bit last week when we talked about magnesium and the thing about magnesium. Now, our child is actually, he's on the autism spectrum and he does probably have low levels of magnesium. He definitely has anxiety. He definitely has what I would call literal tendencies. And yeah, he struggles quite a lot, particularly around bedtime. So what we found as part of his bedtime routine, we've added in bath time every day. Even though like he doesn't sweat as a kid and he doesn't necessarily need a bath every day, we're trying to do it every day now, and we're trying to add in the magnesium to help him absorb that, to improve his magnesium levels, because it is going to really sort of help with all his muscles and all his growth and everything else as well. So relaxing before bedtime also helps them prepare for bed and sleep. So you want to make sure, because that's the other thing about melatonin and serotonin. If you've got lots of blue light and screens and stuff, that really throws all your levels as well, and it keeps your body awake and alert and trying to stay awake when it's meant to be getting ready for bed. So a rule in our house is pretty much after dinner, there are absolutely literally no screens in our house. Everything goes off. The telly goes off. No screens after dinner. So then we go. So almost immediately after dinner, to be honest, we start preparing them for bed. We start doing quieter activities with them. We start running the bath, a magnesium bath particularly. Melissa, I can send you info on the magnesium bath. I can even give you a recipe for it if you want. So shout me a PM in the end, and I'll give you some info. But with the magnesium bath, it's really important for him to be in there for like at least 20 minutes to help him absorb things. Now, anyone else with an anxious child may have the same situation, may have a slightly different situation. I imagine it depends on the child. But my child particularly likes to talk through all the things he was thinking of today right on bedtime. Right on bedtime. That's when his worries come out, because he's stopped doing all the other things, all the other really distracting things. Hi, Rach, how you doing, honey? Saw the pool. So jealous because it's so hot. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, so he suddenly, right before bed, wants to talk about the universe and everything, or usually death or something equally melodramatic and horrible. So what we found about the bath time, because he has to be in there 20 minutes anyway, if we stick him in the bath for 20 minutes with nothing out and we just talk out those problems, it actually allows him to talk through some of the things that were going on in his head when he was getting into bed that were delaying him going to sleep. So we can sit there and we can have a chat and we can go through things. It allows him to have his magnesium intake anyway. We put a little bit of lavender oil. So anyone out there who does all your doTERRA oils or your Young Living oils and stuff, lavender, fully believe in it, really does help calm, gets the system nice and low. So we stick a little bit of that in the bath with the magnesium, and then we talk through whatever he wants to talk through that day during the 20 minutes, and we keep the light in the bathroom quite low, and we just sit. To be honest, it's almost like a romantic bath. We call it the relaxing bath, but you kind of want to go with like your low light, so almost like candles and things like that, just to sort of help with the melatonin and serotonin levels. So yeah, we do the magnesium, we put a little bit of oil in, and we sit for 20 minutes and we just talk, and it just allows him to work through some of the stuff, because when you do have a worried or anxious child, they do kind of want to talk at bedtime, because that's when their thoughts really start to come to the fore, because before that, during the day, they were distracted. They were doing lots of other things. They didn't really get to sit down and think about whatever it is that's worrying them. And that's why it comes out. It's not really to annoy you. It's not really a delaying tactic. It's just part of the way they process. And these thoughts are now in their head. And if we don't sort of help them come out, there's going to be that issue of them not being able to sleep. So there is advice around, say to them, oh, I understand that you're concerned about that. We'll talk about it in the morning and resolve it. Doesn't always work. Certainly doesn't work with mine. He definitely likes to know what's going on and talk through a certain amount before he can even attempt to go to sleep. So that's what we do. So we do that in the bath, and that works in our house. The other thing I would say is grow clocks. I know a lot of people have issues with their kids going to bed or getting up at the wrong time or whatever. They try the grow clocks. And to be honest, I'm not going to say don't buy one, because they might work for other kids. But I would just like to put a little bit of a warning on there about our experience with grow clocks, in that our child became massively obsessed with the clock. So when he woke up, if it wasn't daytime yet, instead of going okay and lying down and going back to sleep, he would stare at the clock until it became daytime. So if he woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, he would sit there and he would stare at that clock for 4 hours until it came up, which was just bizarre. So if you do have a kid that does become a little bit obsessed with the clock or can't stop looking at the clock, try and put the clock somewhere they can't see. That might make a difference. You never know, but it made a difference for us. We had to actually take it out of the room. Like, he can't have clocks because he's obsessed with them, and we can't have them in his room. So little things like that. I think you're going to find your own ones that work for your kid, but just some of the possibilities. Our kid's obsessed with clocks. Our kid gets to that process where he needs to discuss things that have concerned him through the day that he hasn't yet been able to really think out. He needs magnesium, and he really needs low light for quite a long time before bed to help him calm down, just because he is low on melatonin. So that's quite interesting things. But yeah, the thing that I found the most amazing. And thanks, Jen. I just really wanted to share this with everyone because this was like a game change for us. And it's really like when you understand it, it's really quite simple. But I did not think of it for myself. I would not have thought of it for myself. And afterwards, I was kicking myself as to why I hadn't thought of it for myself. But this relates specifically to children who might be extremely literal, or they might be quite anxious, or even just, to be honest, kids who just want to please their parents are going to possibly struggle in the same way with this. So we were talking to Luca's paediatrician about a year ago, probably, and we were just saying to her, we're having this issue with sleep and it's getting really difficult. And she said to us, what do you say to him when you put him to bed? And I said, I think we say have a good night and then, kiss him and leave the room. And she said, so at no point you say to him, it's time to sleep, or we've got to sleep now, or, it's time for bed. And I said, I don't know. I think possibly while we're tucking him in, maybe we use those words or something like those words. Because to be honest, you'd be surprised. Nearly everybody does. And when you think about it and when you actually sit and do it and you're aware of this, you'd be surprised that actually you say it more than you think you do. Seriously, all right? But the interesting thing is, if you're a very literal child and you've been told it's time for sleep, apparently, if you are not asleep within a few minutes, it starts to induce feelings of panic and anxiety and even low-level stress, and you actually feel like you're doing it wrong. And apparently, these feelings actually make it even harder to get to sleep, which means it's even longer before you sleep, which makes you more anxious, which makes it harder for you to sleep, and it becomes this cycle where the kids cannot go to sleep. So she tells me this, and I'm looking at her going, yeah, okay, so I'm a bit of an idiot. So I've been doing that wrong for quite a long time. This is my top tip, seriously. If you've not heard this before, if this is news to you, try this at home, because the following day, I had a conversation with my son that went a little bit like, because he always knew the importance of sleep. We always talked to him about the importance of sleep. We always said, your body really needs to do these things and it repairs a lot then and your brain processes a lot of stuff and sleep is really important. And to be honest, let's be honest, probably adding even more pressure to him. He was probably even more stressed. It was never working, right? Just wasn't working. So we had a conversation with him that went a little bit like this. Luca, darling, you do not have to sleep when you go to bed. What you need to do is rest. Your body needs to lie down in a dark room without too much noise, with your eyes closed, not talking, so that your brain can process through everything that you've done today, and your body will be fine tomorrow without sleep, so long as you've laid down and rested. And he actually got ever so excited, and he said to me, so I can stay awake all night? And I said, yep, so long as you are resting. And he said, so I don't have to go to bed? And I said, well, no, because to rest, you have to be lying down in a dark room in the quiet with your eyes closed. This is what rest is. And rest means that there's no extra stimulation coming in, and your brain can process everything that happened from the day, and all the other stuff will still continue. It'll be okay. He was like, okay, Mum. Every night for the next 2 months, that child was asleep within 10 minutes. And I just sat there and just went, that was too easy. What was I missing? Oh my gosh. Like, seriously, if you have an anxious or literal child, or you have a child that just really wants to please you, please, I'm begging you, do not ever say to them, it's time to sleep, or you've got to sleep, or sleep is really good for you, or because it actually makes it even harder for them to sleep, bless them. And honestly, if you can just make it that it's okay and it's all about rest. And the paediatrician actually said to us, tell him it's time to rest until we fall asleep. So that there's no time limit on it. It doesn't matter how long it takes. If it takes him an hour to fall asleep one day, he's not going to get anxious about that. If it takes him 5 minutes to fall asleep, he's not going to get anxious about that, because he knows that as long as he's resting before he falls asleep, it doesn't matter. So you can introduce it to your child however you like. You can explain it to your child however you like, or you could just stop saying, have a good sleep, or it's time to sleep, or we've got to sleep now, and just see how it goes. I'd love some feedback. If you try this at home and it works on your kid, I'd love to know. If you've got a friend who's having difficulty getting their kid to sleep and you think this tip's going to help them, please share the video, show them, and I'd love to hear from them about how it goes. But I was sitting there gobsmacked going, I'm sorry, that was too easy. I should have known that. I should have worked that out for myself. Like it should have been obvious. I just sat there in this woman's room just going, okay, light bulb moment. I should have known. I just should have known. And I didn't know, and I was doing it wrong. And I thought to myself, I shared a post back when this actually happened, just telling everybody. But it occurred to me, it's been a long time since then. I've got a lot of new friends who may or may not know. And this is my tip. This is my big one tip for helping your anxious child sleep. you need to rearrange the words. You need to change what you're saying as you put them to bed. It's going to make a huge difference to how they feel and how well they sleep. I promise. And I really want to hear from you about how you go. So just let me know. Hi, Fee. Thanks for jumping on. Yeah, hopefully that works. And as I said, feel free to share. If this is new to you, because it was like seriously new to me, and like I say, it should have been obvious, but I did not know. If it's new to you, share it on, and hopefully someone out there can get some benefit from it too, because honestly, it's a bit like that one where they say, oh, did you know the baby things with the poppers are designed to come over the baby's head without getting poo? Or I didn't know that the sleeves on a baby grow were so that you could pull the baby grow down and you didn't have to take the poo covered stuff all over their head. I didn't know that till after my children had grown out of nappies. Okay, because it's one of those things that it's part of the design and nobody ever tells you. I didn't know the envelope sleeves were so that you could take it down and pass the bum. I didn't know that. So there's another tip in case you didn't know that. Share that one as well. But yeah, absolutely. Those little cut sleeves in the baby's grows, you can actually pull those down so that you don't have to take any pooey covered parts of the clothing over the child's head and spread the poo even further. I didn't know that. But I also didn't know, do not tell your child it is time to sleep, because it's not going to help. So there you go. Have a lovely night. Thanks for hanging out for us. I know it was really late because we were on training and stuff, but yeah, Monday Madness, here we go. I'm not really sure what I was going to cover next week. I'll maybe announce it the day before and let you know. But yeah, helping your anxious child to sleep, that's my top tip. Take care, guys. Bye.